Hello everyone and welcome back to Film Form. When I started this channel, I asked myself what's the purpose of doing this? And I thought through this channel I can help you explore new films. Now, I can always tell you about these films and you can go watch them, right? However, I am narrating the stories of these films. So, therefore, it would be nice of me to choose films that you want to watch but you never got round to watching them, right? So, on this episode, we are going to talk about a film that is widely regarded as the greatest film of all time. Made in 1941, Citizen Kane is a landmark in the cinematic movement. Orson Welles, a rookie at that time, made Citizen Kane as his debut movie. And although at that time it was not highly successful, 20 years later, during the 60s, it got a new wave when the French directors of the New Wave movement picked this movie up and they loved it very much. They talked about it and they called it terrific. And every modern technique in filmmaking that we see now, the format, the editing style, the camera style, all these things, you can give credit to Citizen Kane to generate these ideas. Citizen Kane, the story starts with a very simple premise, with Charles Foster Kane on his deathbed. Charles Foster Kane is the protagonist of the story and he is a media baron. He owns one of the most influential newspapers of America called the New York Inquirer, and he is on his deathbed. He is holding a snow globe in his hands, and right before dying he utters the word rosebud and the globe falls from his hands and breaks. And the nurse rushes in, declares Kane dead, and the scene changes to a montage of Kane's life where we see some of his most famous achievements, even scandals, and some clues about his life scattered here and there, right? And then we go to the office of the newspaper reporters, and the entire news reporting community is in a frenzy, and everybody wants to know what the last words of Kane mean. What is Rosebud? Now we follow Thompson, a reporter, and he sets out to report Kane's acquaintances, friends, and families, and to piece together his life, and in the process also find out what Rosebud means. So he goes on to a lot of people. He goes on first to Susan Alexander, that is the second wife of Charles Kane. So from here we come to know that Susan Alexander Kane, who currently is an alcoholic after Kane's death and runs her own nightclub, and she's too drunk and too sad to talk to Thompson, so he just leaves her in her hysteria and moves on. He moves on next to Robert Kane's ex-banker Thatcher, right? And he tries to piece together his whole life, and from this we follow Robert Kane from his childhood to the point of his death, as seen by Thompson through his investigation. When he goes to his banker, Thompson discovers that in 1871 Kane's mother discovered some gold through a mining deed. She hires Thatcher to establish a trust, to provide for Kane when she is not around. And apparently that trust grew in itself, and that garnered the current fortunes that Kane had. During this one scene, we see Kane as a child, happily playing with a sled in the snow outside. Kane's parents introduced little Kane to Thatcher, And Kane, being a little boy that he is, strikes Thatcher with his sled and just runs away. Chronologically, this is the first scene in Kane's lifetime that we see him as a boy using a sled to hit his future longtime friend Thatcher and run away. The next scene happens when Kane is 25 years of age, right? And now he's a young man. The mine's productivity is growing, and his mother's foresight made him into one of the richest men in the world. This is when he takes control of the New York Inquirer. So after he takes on to the New York Inquirer, Kane, for some reason, erratic man that he is, embarks on yellow journalism. You know what yellow journalism is? It's when you publish fake, false, scandalous articles that attack people and have no basis, no grounds to them. And using these articles, he attacked Thatcher's business interests. However, during the 1929 stock market crash, Kane was forced to sell his newspaper empire to Thatcher, right? So you can see this guy has his ups and downs. Then Thompson next goes to interview Kane's personal business manager, Mr. Bernstein. Bernstein remembers that Kane married the president's niece, Emily Norton. So Kane takes questionable decisions. However, he always manages to stay on top, right? And then Thompson interviews Kane's estranged best friend, Jebediah, in a retirement home. Through this interview, we come to know that over the years, he began an affair with amateur singer Susan Alexander while running for governor of New York. Now, everyone discovered about this scandal, right? And this scandal is how his political career ended. He tried to be governor, but his debauchery was exposed to the world and his dreams of being a governor was never realized. However, he did marry Susan despite all of this social backlash, and for some reason he forced her into an opera career, which was humiliating to her and also out of her interests, out of her realm of interest. She had no interest in opera, and Kane forced her into this career. And in this way, he did not even realize that he was pushing Susan away. Now, this opera business that Susan had taken part in was humiliating to her, and this was not only based on the performance but on the reviews as well. The New York Inquirer, Jebediah, his friend, his longtime friend, wrote a scathing article on Susan's opera debut. This makes Kane fire him, and that's how they become estranged. So at the end of all these interviews, Thompson goes back to Susan, who finally consents to an interview and describes the aftermath of her opera career, the humiliating opera career. Kane apparently finally allowed her to abandon singing after she attempted suicide. This was something that was not covered by any of the tabloids, and this was something that only Susan could tell Thompson. After spending years dominated by the authoritarian Kane and living in isolation in the mansion, she left him. She left him alone. Kane's butler has also an account after Susan that when she left, he began to destroy the contents of his bedroom violently. However, when he sees the snow globe that we see at the beginning of the movie, he grew calm and said Rosebud, right? And the reporter concludes that Rosebud will always remain a mystery and we will never come to know. They will never know what Rosebud is. But that's where the advantage of being the audience comes in. You get to know what Rosebud is. So the last shot of the film is back at the mansion. Kane's belongings are all being discarded and being burned in a furnace. They find a sled, the same sled on which the 8-year-old Kane was playing on the day that William Thatcher came to his home. So as they throw the sled into the fire and it slowly burns into ash, its trade name becomes visible, Rosebud. So in the end of his life, despite all the money he made, despite all the fame he had, despite all the women that fawned over him, despite all the respect he commanded in this world, the only thing that he remembered on his deathbed is his childhood sledge. Citizen Kane comes with themes of existentialism that might not be new to the literature of that time, but had a great impact on how the human condition is represented in the movie. So, with this, I'd like to say goodbye to you for this week. Next week, I will try to bring another classic film that is loved by everyone and that I will try to make you fall in love with it too. So for now, this is Anshuman Bishash signing out.